was that? I should kill everyone and escape?
Even though Suicide Squad 3 hasn't officially appeared on the current DCU slate yet, there's honestly still a very strong chance the movie eventually happens down the line. And the interesting thing about the Suicide Squad franchise is that it's actually built to survive constant change. Unlike a bunch of superhero teams where the lineup always has to stay mostly the same, the Suicide Squad comics have always embraced chaos because characters die all the time. That means every new movie can introduce fresh faces, different tones, and completely new missions without feeling forced. So even though the DC Universe is currently rebooting under James Gunn and Peter Safran, there's still plenty of room for another Suicide Squad movie to fit naturally into the future. Back when the first Suicide Squad released, the entire DC Cinematic Universe was still trying to figure itself out. Warner Brothers had a completely different leadership structure at the time, and the DCEU was only beginning to build momentum. David Ayer directed that first movie, and although it made huge money at the box office, the film itself received pretty mixed reactions from fans and critics. A bunch of people felt the movie had a lot of potential, but suffered because of studio interference and editing changes. Still, some characters became extremely popular, especially Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn. Then everything changed when James Gunn stepped in for the Suicide Squad. Instead of trying to copy the tone of the first movie, Gunn leaned fully into the weirdness and brutality of the comics. The movie introduced bizarre new characters, embraced over-the-top violence, and mixed emotional moments with dark comedy in a way that felt fresh. That's one of the reasons fans connected with it so much. It didn't feel like a safe superhero movie. It felt unpredictable because literally anyone could die at any moment. What made Gunn's version especially interesting was how it balanced returning characters with brand new ones. Harley Quinn and Rick Flag came back from the first film, but then audiences also got introduced to characters like Bloodsport, Ratcatcher 2, King Shark, and Peacemaker. Some of them instantly became fan favorites, which proved that the franchise didn't need to rely on one fixed lineup to succeed. And that flexibility is exactly why a third movie still feels very possible, even though it hasn't been officially announced yet. The DCU reboot isn't trying to rush everything anymore. Gunn and Safran seem to be taking a slower approach this time around, focusing on carefully building the new universe instead of immediately throwing dozens of projects at audiences all at once. So, the lack of a confirmation right now doesn't really mean the idea is dead. It probably just means they're prioritizing other pieces of the universe first. Actually, Gunn himself has already talked about the possibility of another Suicide Squad movie featuring an entirely new team. That concept fits the franchise perfectly because the comics constantly reinvent the roster. One movie could focus on more grounded anti-heroes, while another could bring in the weirdest villains imaginable. That creative freedom is probably one of the biggest reasons the franchise still has so much potential. At the same time, the Suicide Squad corner of DC hasn't disappeared at all. In fact, it's still quietly expanding through other projects. Peacemaker became a massive success after spinning off from Gunn's movie, and that alone proved audiences still care deeply about these characters. John Cena turned Peacemaker into one of DC's most unexpectedly lovable characters because he balanced comedy, action, and emotional vulnerability way better than people expected. Now, with Peacemaker Season 2 on the way, the chances of more Suicide Squad-related stories feel stronger than ever. Even though there's no direct Suicide Squad 3 announcement yet, Gunn keeps building connections to those characters inside the larger DCU. Amanda Waller, played by Viola Davis, is also continuing into future DC projects, which is important because she's basically the backbone of the entire Task Force X operation. That's one of the biggest signs that the franchise is still active creatively. DC wouldn't keep carrying over these characters and storylines if they had no plans for them at all. Instead, it feels more like Gunn is carefully planting seeds that could eventually grow into another major Suicide Squad movie later on. One thing fans also love about the franchise is how every movie can almost function as a soft reboot. The teams constantly change. Writers and directors can bring completely different styles to the table. One version can be darker and more serious, while another can be chaotic and comedic. That kind of flexibility makes it easier for future filmmakers to jump in with fresh ideas without feeling trapped by previous stories. Gunn has already built enough story threads from the Suicide Squad to justify another movie eventually happening. The ending left several characters alive who could easily return. Bloodsport, Ratcatcher 2, Harley Quinn, and King Shark all survived the mission against Starro, and fans would absolutely love seeing them again. Especially Bloodsport, because Idris Elba brought such a cool presence to the role that many people instantly wanted more of him. There's also the huge possibility that Peacemaker could eventually become the leader of a future Suicide Squad team. After Rick Flagg's death in Gunn's movie, there's a leadership gap inside Task Force X. And considering how much the DCU keeps focusing on Peacemaker lately, it wouldn't be surprising if he eventually stepped into that role in some form. At the same time, the emotional consequences of Rick Flagg's death are still spreading through the DCU. Frank Grillo is now playing Rick Flag Sr., the father of Rick Flag, and that character is already appearing across multiple upcoming projects. He's connected to Creature Commandos, Peacemaker Season 2, and even Gunn's upcoming Superman movie in some capacity. So even though the Suicide Squad was technically part of the old DCEU, Gunn clearly isn't abandoning its storylines. That's one of the most interesting parts of the DCU reboot. Instead of completely erasing everything from before, Gunn seems to be selectively carrying over elements that worked. Characters like Peacemaker, Amanda Waller, and even Weasel are still sticking around. Although the universe itself is changing, the DNA of the Suicide Squad is still deeply connected to the future of DC. Now, Gunn has admitted himself that another Suicide Squad movie isn't happening immediately because his schedule is packed. Between building the new DCU, working on television projects, and balancing other responsibilities, he simply doesn't have unlimited time. And that's understandable because he's basically helping build an entire cinematic universe from scratch right now. But even though Gunn said there are no immediate plans, he never completely shut the door on the idea. That's the important part. His comments sounded more like "not right now" instead of "never," and in Hollywood, that difference matters a lot. And that wraps up today's video. If you want to stay in the loop with all the latest movie and series news, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give us a big thumbs up, because I'll be bringing you more updates on upcoming movies before they even drop. So keep an eye out for that, along with the latest on your other favorite shows and movies. Stay tuned, and I will see you in our next video.